last 4 months, I have received over 4,000 recordings from Korean students, and the students who study the most grammar freeze the most. So in this video, I will show you 3 things. First, why studying grammar is keeping you from speaking. 2, what to repeat instead. Third, the exact number of times you need to repeat a sentence before it just comes out on its own. So number 1, why grammar cannot make you speak. Let me describe how a usual studying goes for most Korean students. They open a book, they join the class, they understand the theory explained completely. They look at the example sentences and they think, oh, that makes sense. They create 3 sentences and they feel good and they connected theory with practice. But 2 weeks later, in a real situation, the moment comes where they can finally use the new things they just learned and nothing comes out. They're quickly searching in their head. Wait, I studied this. What was this again? And here's the important part. In that moment, you probably tell yourself, my Korean is still weak. So you go back to the book and the class. You learn new rules and new vocabulary. You understand everything again, and 2 weeks later, it fails again. Some people repeat this loop for years and still cannot speak freely. I taught Korean at a university for about 8 years, and hard-studying students were doing this process for so long, and their main problem was never their effort and motivation. Universities and traditional methods teach you Korean, not conversational Korean. Let me explain the difference. In a real conversation, you don't have time to think of what grammar you learned. Somebody is standing in front of you waiting for a response, and you maybe have about 2 seconds. You can actually feel this right now. Try to say as quickly as possible in Korean. I want to go home early today. Did it come out immediately, or did you start searching and translating first? What's the word for early again? How do I say home in this case? What should I start with? Which particle do I use here? This is your grammar brain thinking in rules of books. Each of those little decisions take a second or more. Even with perfect knowledge, thinking through rules is too slow for a conversation. Here's the second problem. You're comparing 2 skills that were trained in completely different ways. Then you compare the 2 skills and decided, I'm bad at Korean. That is not a fair comparison. You're not bad at speaking. You're just untrained at speaking. Think about this right now. Take your last study session and count the minutes where you actually spoke Korean out loud. I don't mean reading in your head, I mean out loud with your voice. Most people find less than 2 minutes. So if speaking doesn't come from rules, where does it come from? Think of 괜찮아요. Somebody bumps into your shoulder and says, sorry, and you say, 괜찮아요. It comes out by itself. Did you conjugate 괜찮다 in your head? Did you think about the ending 아유, 어유? No. You said the sentence so many times that the grammar is inside the sentence. When you practice by textbooks and grammar rules, you understand the theory of Korean, but not the practical side of it. It's like driving a car. You can pass the theory test with a perfect score, but nobody would put you alone on the road the next morning. Speaking Korean is exactly the same way. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, but if I only repeat sentences, I can only say those few sentences. Grammar lets me build any sentence. I'm way more flexible. That sounds logical, but let me show you why it works the other way around. Let's say you drilled 2 sentences until they were automatic. 시간이 얼마나 걸려요? How long does it take? 공항까지 가주세요. Please take me to the airport. A few weeks later, you're in a taxi, late for your flight, and you want to ask a driver, how long does it take to the airport? You never practice the sentence, but 공항까지 and 얼마나 걸려요 snap together, and you just say 공항까지 얼마나 걸려요. You use the particle 까지 correctly. You build the question correctly. And you never thought about one single rule. Every sentence you understand and then make automatic comes with a grammar inside. And when you own several sentences with the same pattern, you start seeing how the pattern works. That is exactly what native speakers do. So repetition doesn't skip grammar. Repetition is the application of grammar, not just the understanding of it. Also, ask your Korean friend why this sentence uses 까지, and not 에서. Most Koreans cannot explain the rule. They will say, that just sounds right. Think about what that means. The best Korean speakers in the world are not using grammar rules when they talk. They're using thousands of sentences they have said thousands of times. And to be clear, grammar study is not useless. It helps you understand what people say to you. So if you enjoy learning the language Korean as a linguist and want to take time with your speaking progress, you can go ahead. And understanding a sentence is step 1 of owning it. You understand it first, because if you repeat something you don't understand, how can you ever use as chunks? Think about driving. You need to know what the steering wheel does. You need to know what a stop sign means. Same thing here. You need to understand what 공항까지 means. And you need to know what 얼마나 걸려요 means if you want to build a new sentence from them. So the question now is, what sentence do you have to repeat? And the answer is simple. Sentences from your life. Not the most common sentences in Korean, your sentences. This sounds so obvious, but almost nobody does it. Let me show you what I mean and what to do instead. First, the Korean language is infinite, but your life isn't. Think about the Koreans you meet. What do they ask you? 어디에서 왔어요? Where are you from? Or 한국어 왜 배워요? Why are you learning Korean? 매운 거 먹을 수 있어요? Can you eat spicy food? The same questions again and again. Your conversation repeat because your life repeats. Same job, same family, same weekend. If you could talk about last week perfectly, you could talk about most of next week too. Because next week will probably look a lot like last week. Now look at what the book gives you. The book is written for everybody, so it is about nobody. You know how to ask where the post office is, but when did you last need a post office? But then a coworker asks you, 주말에 뭐 했어요? What did you do on the weekend? A question about your real Saturday and nothing comes out. 2 years of studying and you cannot describe your own weekend. Not because you're bad, but because nobody ever made you practice your weekend. The book cannot know your job, your family, your city. So it trains you for a life that is not yours. And also, your practice time is limited. Most of my students have very busy schedules, maybe 10 to 20 minutes a day. If you spread your repetitions over 1,000 book sentences, every sentence gets a few repetitions. And a few repetitions? That is exactly the problem from part 1. The sentence feels familiar, but familiar is not automatic. You recognize the sentence when you hear it, but it doesn't come out when you need it. This explains why most students are stuck. They were never lazy. They never had a bad memory. Their repetitions were simply spread over too many things. So everything you know is 1 centimeter deep. Wide and shallow cannot speak. Narrow and deep can. And personal sentences have one more advantage. You actually use them. You drill your answer about your job. And tomorrow, somebody asks about your job. It comes out. That real moment is 1 more repetition. Your sentence gets stronger just by living your life. But probably you're never gonna use the post office sentence, so it slowly fades in your notebook. Now, maybe you're thinking, but I don't want to only talk about my small life. I understand. 2 things. First, when Koreans talk with you, what do they ask about? You, your country, your job, your hobby. In your first year of speaking, almost every conversation is about your life anyway. And second, remember the taxi. Every sentence you own, the patterns come with it. Sentences about your job today become new sentences about anything tomorrow. Your life is not the limit. Your life is step 1. So here's what you can do today. Think of the last 3 moments where you wanted to say something in Korean and it didn't come out. Write those 3 sentences down. English is fine for now. That is your curriculum, not chapter 7 from textbook, your real life. So now you have the right sentences. 1 question left. How many repetitions do you need before a sentence is truly finished? And the answer is the reason most people quit. Here is what almost every student does with a new sentence. They repeat it 3 times, maybe 5, and then they stop. Why? Because at 5 repetitions, the sentence feels finished. You read it, you understand it, you recognize it, your brain says, done, next. So you jump to the next sentence. It is a habit. You think more sentences means more you can say. But we talked about this. Familiar is where phrasing lives. So here's the real number. With my students, a sentence starts to come out by itself around 30 to 50 spoken repetitions out loud. Now look at the gap. Everybody stops at 5. Automatic begins around 30. And between 5 and 30, nothing new seems to happen. You repeat and you feel no change. The sentence doesn't feel more finished at repetition 15 than at repetition 5. So it feels like wasted time, and people stop. They were halfway across a bridge and turn around because they couldn't see the other side yet. But think of 괜찮아요. You know the other side exists, and you know how you get there by repeating many times. And the repetitions must be spread over days. This part is not optional. Here's why. You repeat a sentence 10 times today, and tomorrow morning, half of it is forgotten. Most people think that means it didn't work, but it is the opposite. The forgetting is part of the system. When you pull the sentence back the next day, it comes back stronger than yesterday. It is like push-ups. 50 push-ups in one evening doesn't build anything. 10 push-ups a day for 5 days does. Same 50, completely different result. So 50 repetitions on Sunday feels very productive and is mostly gone by Friday. 10 times a day, 5 days is the same 50 repetitions. Same effort, different outcome. 10 minutes every day beats every weekend sprint. One more thing, and this one can go very wrong. Repetition is a machine. It doesn't check quality. Whatever you fit it, it makes automatic. So imagine your sentence has a mistake, and you repeat it 50 times. Now you make that mistake automatically. So the order matters. Correction first and repetition second. A fluent speaker hears you and fixes your sentence, and then you draw the fixed version. And you cannot do the correction part alone. Why? If you could hear your mistake, you'd already say it right. Last question. How do you know a sentence is finished? Simple test. Somebody asks you the question, and the answer is out of your mouth before you even decide to speak. Like 괜찮아요. It just comes out. That is finished. So let us put the whole thing together. 10 sentences from your life. Each one corrected first, each one repeated about 50 times, a few times each day. That is 500 repetitions, about 10 minutes a day for 1 month. And every pattern inside them belongs to you. And now, the honest part. The knowledge is done. You understood this video. But you know from part 1 what understanding is worth. This video cannot do your repetitions. And this video cannot hear your mistakes. Those two things have to come from somewhere. This is exactly why we built our free speaking community. Every week, you get one prompt from real life and you record your answer. You get a real correction on your recording. And then you repeat the corrected version until it comes out like a bullet. The link is below. I'll see you inside.